It drew me to this feeling of magic that I had experienced, from this like pit of hollow despair to like seeing reality as it was. And I was
Yeah.
like, that speaks to me. That's exactly what I want.
This is Andrew Daniel, and in the video you're about to watch, you'll see a conversation between Nicholas, one of my long term clients, and myself, as he shares his journey of working together for the past year. Nicholas shares some of the struggles he faced, the lessons and insights he's learned, and all of the transformation and changes that occurred from working together through this Cinesomatic process. Enjoy. Hey, Nicholas, how are you?
Doing well. How are you, Andrew?
Good. Um, so I just want to start off with this and by asking you a little bit about before you came to work with me, um, what was going on in your life, the things that you've tried, um, and your journey to beginning this work.
Yeah. Um, I think in a lot of ways, if I remember what it was like before, I liked my life a lot. At least I thought I did. And then the journey that led me in this direction um, was at some point realizing I wanted more. And specifically, what I wanted more of was I wanted to feel more included, especially socially, right? Um, it always something when I really looked at it, like if I sat still with myself and I would feel it, I felt like I wasn't quite included. I wasn't quite being seen. I wasn't quite seeing and understanding other people. I was just kind of like doing or acting in such a way. So, you know, I always had what looked like the results of like, I've had friends, I've had girlfriends, um, nice place to live, everything's working out. But it was like, something really big felt like it was missing. So that's what sent me always to one book after another. I was like, what's the thing that's missing? Yeah. And it just became, since I was about 20 is when I first started to have like introduce the idea that I can actually do something different with my life than whatever I was already set out with. So I'd look for the next thing and look for the next thing and look for the next thing. And I was always pretty satisfied, with the dopamine high of the new thing. I'm like, oh, I'm going to make it work. And then the next thing, and always kind of continually falling for that trap. And then at some point, I just got like totally disillusioned with it. And I was just like, okay, I see what I'm doing. And that's clearly not doing the thing. Like I'm learning something new every time and I'm doing something new and I'm getting excited. And I realized I was like, I think the excitement is what I'm actually living for, not the thing itself. Right.
Yeah.
So something's missing. I don't know what it is. And so I actually, for the first time in my life, seeked out coaching, like in-person coaching, rather than just a book, just listening to people talk in seminars or, YouTube and that kind of thing. Like I'm gonna fork out the money. I'm gonna pay for an actual coach, and had a huge breakthrough. Very frustrating, very confronting, actually, and realized that I had just been faking a lot of my interactions with people, especially, and just creating this like high self-image, which which would result in a very manic, high, excited, onto the new thing, to just like completely shut down and closed off, which I've never really accepted about myself. So when I look back at it, those are just kind of dark areas of my life that I wasn't really paying attention to. So I wasn't feeling it as much as I feel it now when I do that.
Yeah, definitely.
I didn't realize just how depressing
Yeah.
that load was. Just because I always had this like, no, I'll fix it, I'll make it, I'll figure it out. So I sought out this coach and had a very confronting experience. And in that and shortly after, just a couple of days after that confronting experience, had a breakthrough of beauty. Like I was standing in front of people and looking into their eyes and seeing a real person for the first time in my life, feeling a real person for the first time in my life. And then I went and walked on Venice Beach, and I could feel the sand, more so than just feeling it on the edge of my skin. It was I could see it. I could really see it for the first time. I could taste the air. It was just a very enveloping experience. And as I didn't know what it was then, I thought at the time I thought it was magic. I thought, oh, cool! I've got this amazing new secret that I'm like, I can do this, and it's so cool, and I'm gonna run with it. And I need to do more of this so that I can be, powerful. uh, and that specific style of coaching is very, very expensive, and it's just all condensed into one, week at a time, basically. Not to say that that's not powerful work, because it was insanely powerful work. But what I knew that I needed was I was like, I need this. I need something like this that I can just see on a weekly basis. So I can I can just consider, like, here's what I'm working on now, get some feedback, go work it out in my life, come back, and then, have somebody that's actually like invested with me over time. And somebody had, almost as soon as I had the idea had come to my mind and the feeling had come for me, somebody had recommended your book. And in reading the book, the image on the front already spoke to me, because it was it drew me to this feeling of magic that I had experienced, from this like pit of hollow despair to like seeing reality as it was. And I was like, that speaks to me. That's exactly what I want. It's exactly what I'm going for. It felt exactly like that. So from there, I went ahead, I like me. I was like, should I do it? And I went back and forth. And then finally I was just like, no, this is the right, like, this is clearly what I do. This is exactly how he coaches. This is exactly what I want. He's got the same lineage of coaching that I had so respected from this other coach that had helped me make that breakthrough. And you just happen to coach both in that way and in a one-on-one personal basis. And that's what I was seeking. And so I made sent out the email through your website, and it's been an absolutely rich, eye-opening, and also continuously confronting experience.
Yes. Well, we're gonna get into that
Yeah.
in a second here. And yeah, just it was quite miraculous how you came in, because I never got that email. I think I told you this. That email you sent, I never got it. But I had some software on my website that provided analytics, and I was checking the analytics, and it popped up in that. I was like, this was like a week ago, and I never received this email. And from there, I reached back out to you, and you did the embodiment assessment. But before we get into that, you talked about the book, and I have a lot of clients, a lot of new people coming in because of the book. It's just won an award and all of this stuff. So a lot of people are being exposed to this new kind of work, because it is very different than most of what's out there. So if you could share a little bit about the book and the content in it, and what about that stood out for you, um, that helped you.
Yeah. Am I allowed to swear?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. The book spoke to me because it's like, the overarching theme of the book that stood out so much to me was that it spoke to everything I had seeked out through other forms of like connectedness and embodiment, that I always felt was just like ungrounded, attempting to get to know myself or connect to God in a way. And it's like, there's so many ways that are ungrounded. And as I read your book, it spoke so clearly to, and like just unmuddied the water, no bullshit, basically. And it's like, and I just felt like I felt a weight to it, and I trusted it tremendously. So in so many areas of life, and the way that I would want to inflate my ego, and every chapter having this like, well, when you're focusing on your intellect, And like, that's the story you tell yourself about yourself. That's not what it's about. And I'm like, fuck, I do that. And then like when you're pretending to be all self-righteous and spiritual, and you're focusing on an ego and an ideal, and like, that's not who you are, like that's not actually who you are. And you're collapsing because you're propping yourself up in these ways. And the every time, every chapter, every new way, I'm like, I've done that, I've done that, I've done that, I've done, oh, true, okay. And it's this constant reminder that somewhere in my gut, I knew this, right? And I just been creating all this madness in my life, just scurrying and around trying to find something to latch on to, when the thing that I was the thing that is actually worth connecting to, and the only thing I can really truly ground to, is just this, like, this body, this sense of self, and what comes through that. And it's still hard for me to explain that, but I've experienced it enough times at this point that it starts to make sense. And the book spoke to it. So the book spoke to this. And it's like, whether I understood it at the time or not, I thought I understood it, and I became very self-righteous about the book itself, and was preaching it to all of my friends of like, no, stop doing this, So I'm very, very good at that. Every time I reread it, I get another level, another cut. And whether I reread the entire book, or whether I reread just one chapter at a time, oftentimes, oftentimes for a moment, all I need is just one specific reminder. Is, for instance, if I'm getting a little too excited about how like spiritually elevated I am, I just go reread that chapter. It can be quite a grounding. And so the book overall is a very, very grounding experience, and strangely alluring in the way that image on the front draws me into the magic. The book kind of takes away the magic at first. It seems to take away the magic. It's like this almost brutal honesty. And then as I actually step into the experience of what is being said, I start to feel something real. And that real feeling, compared to this paper mache world that I lived in my own mind, is fucking magical. It's beautiful, it's vibrant, and it's rich, and it's stable, and it's safe in a way that, like, it's everything that I had otherwise searched for in my life, that I avoided or thought I couldn't have because of the experience I had as a young child.
Well, it's that fantasy, right? So much of the stuff that's out there that seems magical, it has a little taste of that magic. But so often, either it or our perception of it is rooted in that fantasy. So yeah, when you start the book or get really into the book, it's like all of that. It feels like it's all collapsing, right? It's like, oh man, there's no magic. Oh, I've been conning myself. Oh my god, and it's just dish 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 dish. And then at some point, you realize, wait a minute, this is the magic. It's underneath it. The magic is the thing underneath the fantasy, underneath the distortions, underneath the suffering, and all of the stuff. And so that's real. And so often we dismiss the realness, we dismiss that vibrant magic that you're talking about, for a fantasy that has maybe more sparkly things on it. You get on to the next shiny object, and then you realize what? What did you realize?
Well, I realized I was chasing the shiny object. Like this, for me, my biggest mythology was about perfection, which is like, I'm not good enough. And when I and beyond myself, the imperfection of everything else outside. So there's a dark side and a light side, per se. And from a place of not feeling, everything ends up actually feeling quite rich. But there's also, I find the things that I was totally avoiding, which is how scrutinizing you know, how scrutinized I felt as a child, and then how scrutinizing I became as an adult, and then how I tried to hide that in order to be, somewhat socially acceptable. And instead of growing it and maturing that part of myself, that voice or that feeling, I just suppressed it, and then created some other
Yeah.
persona, which is just hollow. It just feels hollow. It feels empty. It's very depressing.
Yeah. Okay, so the book. All right.
Mm.
So you read the book, then you signed up for the embodiment assessment. And that was our first time meeting. It was our first time together.
Yeah.
And how was that for you? What was that experience like? All of it. Don't hold back.
I mean, that was my experience is a little bit tainted because I just rewatched that video. Like I just
Okay.
rewatched the replay for that, and had a whole lot of emotions just about rewatching the replay. But like, wow, that's where I was a year ago. Okay.
Well, share a little bit about that.
I'll share it. Just like,
Whatever fits in. Yeah.
the thing that stands out the most is how happy I thought I was. And then rewatching the video and seeing just how absolutely frustrated and angry and sad and depressed the man on the screen was, who I thought. And I remember that just being such a shock at the time, because, I got up and I did some movement, and we rewatched it and replayed this movement. And then you told me, how you felt about it. And then I actually looked at myself, which I just like, when I look into a mirror, I'm like studying like the details of the shapes of my face. I'm not actually feeling myself. And when I look into a mirror
Right.
from the place I would look into a mirror from. So I'd never reflected on myself in such a way. And so to rewatch this, and I'm like, I can't argue about the fact that I clearly don't look happy. I'm like, so it's much more obvious now than it even was then.
Ah, yes. Yeah.
Like I rewatched it now, and I was like I couldn't even, I didn't even think I was willing to take it all in. It's just like I'm trying to feel lighter about it, just because it was so, I mean, if I had seen somebody like that at the time, I would have been so judgmental of them. Like, oh my God, you're just endless pit of vortex and despair. Like, I will never hang out with somebody like you,
Right.
And then I
But
looked and I was like, that was me. Like when I would let
yeah.
go of the stoic mask, and then I would actually let myself open up and feel, it was just deeply, deeply sad, grievous, and just like hurt by the world, hurt by myself.
And and you didn't realize that
No,
when
in
you
my
heard
own
it. You
mind,
thought you were happy. Yeah.
I thought I was happy.
Yeah.
When we came down to the reflection, and we watched the most interesting part of the replay that I got the most excitement out of was this part where I thought I was just swimming in joy. And then when we rewatched the replay, I looked like a tyrannical dictator, just like hyping that was never going to be fulfilled. And like, as you reflected on that, I couldn't help but see it. And I was just like, I'm just power hungry. And that was not joy. That was like, there was no joy in any of that, even though in my mind I thought I was just like happy and having a great time. But the look on my face was just like, I'm struggling to do it now, because it's like I still have it in me, but it's we've done a lot of work since then.
Yeah.
And another point in rewatching that video is just how much I struggled to feel actual joy. Like, you would coax me into like, just do it wrong, do something different. Or there was this moment where I started, having a little piano playing session where I was like, do, 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 do. And I was so embarrassed and I was like judging myself. And when we rewatched the replay, that was the moment where I actually felt joy. Was the thing that I felt so scared of, that I wanted to run away from, that I was like, get this out of me, get this away from me, was like just an honest, playful joy. I was enjoying myself. I was loving myself. I was loving the space, my little piano in front of me. And the only thing that was so strong in my presence at the time were just all these judgments about, don't do this. This is so emasculating.
Yeah, all these stories, right? It
all
just we we just think that's how it is. We don't realize it's just not us. All these things running us. So you sent me over a clip of this, right? We got a clip of this we're gonna
right.
look at.
Right. We
Um,
do.
what is it that we did, Nicholas, when we did this movement session? What were the instructions? What does this work like? What makes this different? What were you supposed to be doing here?
Well, apparently I still struggle with this one, but considering our last movement session. But what we're supposed to be doing here is I'm just moving my body. I am shaking my hands, and that's it. And there's no other instruction other than that. And the idea here is to see what's coming out of me, how much I'm restricting myself, whether I'm letting it, whether it's actually free, like what it feels like, so that we can review, we could see, feel in reflection what I will let myself feel at the time as much as
Well,
possible.
wow, I'm little sorry. I looked at you for a second. Oh my gosh, you look so different.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh. I mean,
yeah,
just before and after here of you.
it's a
Look,
lot.
I mean, you are so much softer and lighter and accessible and happier. I mean, it's just, I mean, it. Wow, this is my first time seeing this comparison here.
Yeah.
Wow, there is such a difference. Wow. And so, all right, let's just take a look at this. So yes, the instructions are, as you said, do it from feeling, right? Feel and shake,
Yep.
just shake your hands. And then we see what that translates to. And so in the body, there's masculine and feminine polarities. There's range, there's scale, there's allowing, there's suppression, there's all sorts of data that not only inhabits the body, but gets communicated and transmitted through movement. And so this process is a way to, without talking about it, without engaging the ego or the intellect, the mind, how do we see really what's happening in your life? And all of this stuff, as you found out, isn't just shaking your hands.
No.
It reveals a much deeper truth, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And would just feel free to share what you're thinking and seeing as you look at this.
It's just I'm remembering back to this point, and it's like what I know now and I feel now is just the broadness of the experience. Whereas like at that time I knew, like I trusted, but I was still like I didn't even have a depth of experience to know really even what was happening. I just like cognitively I understood it, I knew it. And so I was like, all right, we're doing something here. Like I'm doing this. And I had the ideas of what I was doing. And then to look back on that, it was just like, so internally, it was so dark and structured. Like everything was still like, I was still trying so hard to create something specific or to make something specific happen. And not really letting my body in, my body intuition in. And so in the moment, just like to even look back, still had a lot of distance, like even in reflection, still had a lot of distance from what was happening. Like, oh, this is just an animal that I'm going to learn to train or control. And so even as I look at myself a year ago, I can, I still know those all of what was going on in his mind. I was trying to like control all of this and maintain some sense of safety and superiority.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
If
it was
we
sucking all the joy out of his life. Poor dude. Oh
Yeah.
god.
You know, if we put these two people together, you and this guy, you'd say they're related, they're family,
Yeah.
but I would not say they were the same person.
Thank you.
Can you see what I mean? I mean, it's that different.
Yeah.
And this is just a year. I mean, this was
Yeah.
just a year.
Yeah. It was a very good year.
Yeah.
Very
Probably one of
challenging.
the
Very
hardest.
challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. But
Wow. I mean, you can just feel the arrogance and narcissism. I mean, it's palpable.
same haircut though.
And the cool thing is this you, he was in there. He was in there the whole time. He's just scared, right?
Yeah.
Trying to control and all this stuff. Let's get, we don't have to watch the whole thing. Let's get, so this is the weird stuff that people do when they get on a call with me. They do things like this, and then a year later, their whole entire life's changed.
Yeah. It still blows me away that like even at that time I still had a lot of friends and still had an easy time getting into relationships, girlfriends and like that stuff. And I'm like how does that, it doesn't even it's hard, it hardly makes sense to me now, like how that relationship or how those relationships even worked. Or like what was the
Well,
other than just having like a shared imaginary experience, I guess.
well, then the question is, how well did they work, really?
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
And
I
this
guess
is
they
the thing.
didn't work all that. I mean, they were
They
there.
worked enough, right? It. And so this is the incredible thing is that we have all of this stuff going on, and yet somehow we still manage we still manage to do well in certain ways.
People still loved
Um,
me. People still
yeah,
loved me and were forgiving, even with all of this going on. And I'm like,
yeah,
that is a testament to just how fucking beautiful, how much beauty and love is present in the world
yes.
as it is. You
I um
know.
I had the same experience when I looked back on some videos of when
Yeah,
I
I've seen some of
started.
yours.
Yeah, yes, yes, you have. And they're not pretty. That's for another time. Um, but I looked back on that and just and sometimes reflected back in pivotal moments on my journey, and it's like, wow, how anybody could have loved me or put up with me when I was doing this insane, narcissistic, abusive, manipulative, self-destructive, consumed bullshit. It's like, wow, how did I have? I didn't have a lot. I wasn't very successful in a lot of ways, but the little that I did have still blew me away. It's like, wow, people just liked me enough to even put up with it. And so it was really hard to see that, and just that the grace and the generosity that we all offer each other. I mean, we all put up with all sorts of stuff with the people that we love in our life, and then it's amazing once we let that in and see that and have compassion with ourselves, how much more we can do in the world, how much of a light we can be for others, how much real joy and beauty in all of this stuff in a very functional way once we stop this stuff. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't even have relationships. It was my myth and manipulation and story that was relating to somebody else's. We didn't even actually know each other. It was just our drama that knew each other.
He's so angry.
Yeah, and so, so that's neat, right? I probably should do it backward, right? Do the
Uh,
opposite. At least that's what it looks like. And then you see in that little second, the this joy that you have here, a little bit of that started um, dripping through, and then immediately you shut it down again.
yeah.
Got to
Oh
keep the
yeah.
mask, the cool man mask, right?
Yeah, exactly. Mm. One of the funny things is that's been my mythology, is like this, like gotta be like the stoic cool man, and this is a lot of this is a result of that, the suppression at least, and the after 12 months video, I watched them both side by side, and the after 12 months where I'm actually showing like my love and my joy, and still remaining, grounded and just appreciating myself. I was like, that guy actually looks like a man. Like this looks like an angry boy, um, just like frustrated with the world.
Yeah, I forgot just how pissy you looked.
Hey. I know it's been a while. Wow.
I know. Do you miss him?
I wanted to say yes, but I do not. I don't miss this.
It's a loving,
Yeah. I want to give him a big old, like, I just want to go back and just give this
Yeah.
like big old hug, but I know he would just say, no, fuck you, get out of here. I won't have
Oh
this.
yeah.
I will not have
You can't hear. Yeah. So what do you feel?
this. Just this is probably a moment where you're saying do it wrong, you
Yeah.
know? And like I can still feel the like do it wrong. Like I'm still trying to do wrong right. It's like every level, it's so hard to make this break, to make that breakthrough. Like that
Yeah.
took 6 months before I finally had like my first big let go moment where I actually just like felt my own feelings and let it through and let it out, like without suppressing. Just trying so hard. uh, oh, there it is. There it is.
Oh, you can even see what you're doing with your mouth, right? It's just
Just trying to swallow it. Just like
yeah.
swallow it all.
Well, you can even see a little bit of a change just from that 18
Yeah.
minutes. Okay, so then let's talk a bit more, and then we're going to look at the after video of uh, the year mark, and that one has some movement in it, right? There's some
Yeah, I
okay,
sent you the movement clip.
great. Um, well, let's actually take a look. Um, no, so before we do that, share a little bit about what you were struggling with. So in the beginning, when you started, in the first few sessions, I started giving you some feedback, and we got to uncover some of these primary things that were keeping you stuck, holding you back, causing suffering. Can you share a little bit about in the beginning some of the challenges you were facing, not only in here but in your life that we set out to work on together?
Yeah, the first thing that comes up was still working on this one, but like listening and actually taking the cue, or the not the cue but the instructions, like, and not overcomplicating it. I had a really I was really good at hearing your instructions that are just super simple, like use your hands to feel yourself. Okay, very simple. And like making it way overcomplicated, like it had to be this other thing, and then just like searching for and trying to figure out. And it's like, and I do that in such a simple case of just like, you're telling me to shake my hands, right? um and then do it backwards, all the other things, and all the ways that I'm like overcomplicating, like, okay, well, what does backwards mean? Is it this? Is it this? Is it, anything, right? Rather than just let it happen, trust it. um and so listening, I really struggled to listen. I didn't actually know that. And I've still been unlocking that over time. So that's a thing that I at the time didn't know was such an issue, and that was really prevalent throughout my life. um, and just something I was completely blind to, like completely blind to how often somebody would say something, and then my reflection back, or what I responded to, was something very different than what they actually said. And oftentimes that would come up in our sessions as well. Like you would say something, you would reflect something, and then like the thing that I was actually responding to was just this other idea that was coming in my head from behind me, of like whatever your words triggered in that response, that was the thing I responded to, not necessarily you. Um, so I was just not actually in relationship with you. I wasn't actually in relationship with anybody. And I just had like these,
No, go ahead.
yeah. And I just like, even the closest relationships that I did have, were were just, romantic relationships. Even then, there were just these really short moments in time where we would feel just enough intimacy that, it felt survivable. But for the most part, it was always, some like, oh, we're on our path to success or something like that. And that's what bound us together, or we're
Well, talk
creating
about
some.
that a little bit. Intimacy. It's not necessarily something that people come in here talking about or aware of. And then the intimacy that we experience and work on here isn't necessarily what the culture defines as intimacy. Um,
It's
but
so
you've had,
backwards.
but
Yeah.
you've
Oh.
had huge growth in this, and it's been so beautiful to see.
it's just, it's so backwards. And it's like, and I feel like I was pretty far off the beaten path when it comes to intimacy. And I'm not, and I'm like, I'm not that, and I'm not the only one per se. Like there's so many ways that we have, there's so many versions of intimacy that now none of them is like so much more capable of being in it and seeing it, that everybody, like most people, are avoiding to some degree. And you just don't fucking, like, you just don't know. Like I didn't know. I mean, I felt some deep despair inside of me. There was something always calling forth, but I had no idea what it really was. And so like my idea of intimacy at the time was like, oh, we agree on the same politics, so I can stand to be with you without getting frustrated at how stupid I think you are. Like that was my idea of intimacy. That was an idea of intimacy. Or we believe in the same idea of, man woman relationship. Like you have these roles and I have these roles. We agree on that. You do your things, I'll do my things. We'll fuck sometimes, or we'll have sex sometimes, and so we both get a little like hurrah, and then we'll get excited about the things that we want to do, and calling that intimacy. And those are not, like, they are their own things. They kind of matter in a relationship, but those are not intimacy. That's not at all what intimacy is. Intimacy is this really rich space of feeling my own body, my own senses, my own like drive, my own and my own sense of safety, and then witnessing you doing the same in the same experience, and then realizing that we're witnessing each other witnessing, and then something I still don't yet know how to explain. Something magical happens, and it feels really like we're like synced up. We're in a shared
Mm.
reality. It's like our minds begin to our minds begin to just communicate just through verbal, just through tonal, visual cues and signals. And I don't have to think about what that means. Like I don't look at your crossed arms and say, oh, he's cold or moving away from me. It's like none of that has to happen. All of the information just feels present in my reality, and there's just a knowing. And as long as I don't get in the way and try to overanalyze it, we can just move together. We can sing together. We can like go paddle on the lake together, like it. And I feel like in that way of intimacy, I actually have a partner. I actually have a friend. I'm actually in a group of people with a group of people. And like the term in love makes sense. Like in the most literal sense, we are like in the field of love. Like I'm not like obsessing with a person. That's not love, right? I am like just in the experience and sharing that with others who are also sharing that experience. And
That's just a
still
little life changing. Yeah.
it's a little life changing. It's a little life changing. It's a little scary. Like even after a year,
Yeah.
I'm still getting my legs. I still feel like that new moose, and he's kind of like, oh God, his legs are all wobbly and struggling to stand up and walk right, and then kind of hobbling around to run. And I still feel like that, but I can walk now, or like
Right.
an experience that most people know is learning to ride a bike. Like I'm like, I'm a really sloppy bike rider at this point, but I can ride the bike, and that's very cool.
It is pretty cool. And it's and it's intimacy um requires that vulnerability. And so it's not like you never are scared, right? When I'm becoming intimate with somebody, it's, it's like, oh, all right, here we go. I got my sea legs, but sometimes there's still storms. Sometimes there's still the entire ocean. Um, and it's, you've cultivated, you are cultivating, we're all cultivating as we go, that willingness to go deeper and deeper and deeper and to let people in. Because that's the other thing. Intimacy, you let people in to see you. Um, and we don't really like that all the time as a people.
Yeah,
So what
I think.
else? Or go
Yeah,
ahead.
the next thing I would add is like intimacy is not as one dimensional as I thought it was. Like intimacy, I might have thought of as mostly sexual, um, and then if I didn't think it was sexual, I would be in more of like an intellectual perspective that it's like, oh, intimacy is a way of love. Like it's actually something you share with everybody, but not actually knowing what that experience was. And what I seem to be finding is that intimacy is all of those things. It's a connectedness on all of the levels. Like it's a connectedness of feeling my heart race with yours, feeling my mind sync up with yours in conversation. It's feeling my gut and my sense of like safety and the care that the care that I have for keeping the space orderly and tidy, and that syncing up, like letting me in, and us feeling like we're safe in the space together. It's a sexuality, whether that's like man with man in a straight way, where like I'm like sharing sexual energy with my friends, and in the fact that we share our stories, or we share experiences, and I'm like, you're another man, and I experience this experience with you. And then, or in a polarizing relationship, whether that's man man, woman woman, man woman, where like as soon as that channel opens, there's just this whoop, everything, just the space just fills up with energy, right? There's just a rush, there's a deep rush with that, and it like just like there is with the thing that I've been learning the most about is that like my chest and my heart space and my love, is that there's a type of filling that happens there as well. It's this just like and all the way down to the toes, like all the way down to the toes. Like every part of the body has an intelligence. Every part of the body has a thing to say per se, or to show you or us and each other. And It reminds me of a moment where I was at your house in an in-person um, weekend retreat, and we worked with just our hands, like just my hands,
Yeah.
and my hands expressed such personality that just it was so weird to watch, and it was real. I can't deny it. Like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this hand has a very had a very like meek personality, and this hand had a very like, come on, like when are you going to do something personality. It's very expectant and entitled. um, and now when I the video we're about to watch, like I watch myself like, you know, exploring my body with my hands. I can feel those, I can feel the maturing of those personalities, you know, exploring like the rest of myself that also explores back.
Well, you find out that the body's a hologram, right? Every part of the body matters. And in our mind, in our traumas, and all of this stuff that happens, we map it out, we block it, we suppress it. I mean, for so many years, I literally judged the lower part of my body as just this thing that got me from A to B. I didn't, oh, my feet, whatever, who cares? Oh, but my hands, oh, I do much. And we do this stuff and we don't even realize that that actually means something, that actually affects something. Uh, and that's one of the very different things about this work is that you realize, hey, there's something going on with my hands. Well, it's not just my hands, it's whatever these relate to in real life. Like everything maps over to a very practical thing in our life. Um, and so it's not just about prioritizing one or the other and saying, well, this chakra is the more important one. And this one, who cares about that? Or this part of the body, oh, the masculine's really great, but yeah, who cares about the feminine? No, no, no. Everything, right? And then we get to see our judgments. We get to see how we uh, avoid or betray or judge these different parts of ourselves. And it's really easy to see that because whatever we see in the world, that's what we're projecting.
And then that's one thing that I would add too, is that like it kind of sets a connection between intimacy. And one of the things that I was dealing with, you know, a year ago, is that I didn't know how much I hated myself and how disgusted in myself that I was, like my own body, my own hands, not even paying attention to any of this. But I had no intimacy with my own body, my own sense of self, which reflects on my lack of intimacy with the space, with everybody else. And it's something that you speak to quite often, is like, as above, so below, as within, so without. And that's resonated as abundantly true every time I make a deeper level connection with it. Like, I'm like, oh, I struggle to make certain, I struggle to make connections, you know, in an intimate heart space. I also don't like this area of my body. I avoid the heck out of it. So it's like, how can I connect with somebody else if I can't connect with my own? And the more that I actually like open up, build that relationship and that love with myself, like my personal intimacy, I'm opened up to intimacy with others. The reverse also happens. Some days I'm focused on the allowing intimacy with others, and it reflects back into myself. So I will love my friends. I will give my friends more compassion and care than I had given them the day before or weeks before. And then that starts to reflect on how I treat myself. So they feed they feed we feed each other.
Yeah, it's the cycle, right? Well, let's take a look at this after video. Was there anything in the feedback session that you sent me that is important to look at?
Oh, I think we've spoken to most of it. I sent that just in case there was something interesting.
I mean, you know, we could
There's
spend
we could
hours talking about this stuff.
we really could.
We're not gonna, but you know, it's there's a lot.
That makes me think of the number of times where we've gone into a movement session, and I've like moved or attempted to let myself express, you know, some archetype inside of myself. And you know, we'll do the expression for 10 to 15 minutes, and then when we go into the replay, we only actually replay about 60 seconds or 120 seconds, because there's so much information in oftentimes in just a very short chunk. It's like we don't even have time to get to everything that's being said, everything that's being communicated, because there's a lot,
It's a lot.
happening, a lot happening in a human body.
So one thing I did want to ask, because we've been working together for a year, and you decided to continue working together. Um, no, the bug wants to get in me. Um, and oftentimes people ask me, all right, well, why do people work so long with you if it works? And I say, well, that's exactly why they keep working with me, because it works. But tell me a little bit about that in this process of how fast this process works, the intensity of it, and why. Because you touched upon it, that there's so much in it.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's a great segue in sharing that process.
Yeah, this I feel very strongly about, and it's and beautifully that you're asking the question, because I was just coaching a client last night of my own, and congratulating him on taking this, what I consider a slower path, right? But a foundational path, right? And that's what your work speaks to me so strongly, is that like it is an endless journey. There is no end to how deeply we can relate with ourself and the space around us. I don't believe there is an end. And so to always have, a healthy access to reflection and going deeper, and just the curiosity alone, it's just it just gets better. That, and it stands out from the quick fix idea, the quick fix models, right? And you know, often something that I tell my clients is like, I have some things I can give you that are going to be quick fixes, and I assure you that this will not help you as much as you think it will. You will get the thing that you want right now, and then you will be depressed again a week later or a month later, however long it takes for that thing to lose its initial excitement. And what I've continued to notice with continuing to do the work with you is that like it's never about the quick fix. It's never about like, okay, well, here's what like, I'm like, Drew, what do I need to do right now so that like I can get my boss to give me more money, if that was or like, so that I can get this girl to like sleep with me
So I
faster
can
or
make
something like that.
progress.
So I
That
can
was
make
one.
progress.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it stops being about even the idea of progress, and more about I've definitely given you a lot of shit at times, because I still have a lot of that, like, come on, like, where's the progress? Where am I at on the map? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then always you hold me kindly and say like, sure, you can do that if you want. And there's something here. There's another reason you're actually here. And that. And every time I go a little bit deeper, and the more that I get connected, the more I realize just how much there is to explore, and that life isn't about climbing a ladder per se. It's exploration and expression, which then just inherently builds. It inherently builds. I inherently build and create, which then looks like climbing a ladder. Like if you look at it like that, like Elon Musk is like the richest man on earth, and just extremely like loving and playful, compassionate dude, just he's like, I want to do this, and he goes and does it. He talks to all the people that also want to do it, and then they make it happen together. And like, look at all the amazing things that he's built. Whether they're sustainable or not, I have no idea, but like, he's done it, and he's
having fun. He's working his
having
ass off, but look how much fun he's having.
and he's having an immense amount of fun,
Yeah.
and fulfilling, and so much fulfillment in that, and
And providing
bringing.
so much value to people.
Exactly, value. So there's jobs, there's cars, and I own a Tesla,
Yeah.
and I love that car. It's amazing, and I feel really cool about it. And I've felt very I've I have felt very like superior at times, and now I just enjoy the car. It's not really about the superior, even though it still creeps up on me, and I'm like, I am better than you.
Yeah, well,
I
and
could
so
be okay with that too. It's just a little
e-
game that I can play.
exactly, right? The shadow work.
Yeah,
It's like, we this isn't about eliminating the shadow. And how many times you want to go, I know, but I want to get rid of this. I don't want to feel this anymore. Let's just get past it. It's like, no, what if you fall in love with it? And I've seen you over the past year fall more, well, fall, but you know what I mean, fall more and more in love with yourself. And yourself includes both the light and the dark. And and then you bring that harmony to others, and you begin to accept and hold space for other people's light and dark without the judgment,
absolutely.
or
And the
with
thing that I would,
judgment, and then you have compassion for yourself.
yes, and that compassion and that fundamental feeling of myself eliminates eliminates the crashes that I would always have before.
Yeah.
And this is what was so cool with my client last night, is that I noticed, I was like, okay, he's I could feel his cup filling and filling, that it's been filling over months and months of work, and it's filling, and now he's starting to have more of the tangible results of the thing that he wanted, yet he's not having the like, oh, I'm almost there, and then or like he's not like, oh, I'm going to get the thing and then collapse, once he realizes that, like, oh, he did a couple tricks, he got the thing,
Right.
and then once he actually goes home with, and then like starts to date this girl that he was like super interested in trying to get, like realizing like that it's not actually who he is. So he can't really sustain this without an immense effort. It's going to collapse. They're going to break up, right? Like that whole situation. Yet the man that I got to see last night, it's like, oh, this man's cup is filling. Like if he succeeds with the current, like his current love interest, if they succeed, they go on a date and he shows up exactly like this, and then they continue, like they're going to continue in a stable, enjoyable way because he already likes himself. Like
Right. Imagine that.
he's
Yeah.
gotten to a point where he already likes himself, and then if he agrees to continue seeing this girl, like he already likes her. They weren't playing a game, they weren't playing tricks to get to
Oh.
know each other. He just likes himself, he likes her, she likes him, and it's like they're going to be able to just keep doing that, light and dark. He's not hiding
And
himself anymore.
and
And
it's the go ahead.
I'm externalizing to a client, but like that's been true for me. That's the reason I keep coming back to this, is I'm like, oh yeah, like I get mad sometimes because I'm like, where's the where's the big goblet of perfectionism that is like, I have the gold, I have it all, and now I'm King
Complete
Concha,
and perfect or
I'm
whatever.
complete,
Yeah.
exactly. Where's the completion? And it's like, and then every time, like letting that dissolve, and then realizing that it's like it's already that way. It's already that way. Exactly what I have. Like this is all that's ever going to be. Um, and then just letting myself relax into that feeling. And then there's nothing to prop up, there's nothing to hold up, there's nothing to just like fucking put all of this energy into like making it work. I just get to relax, and that's so sustainable. It's
It's true
so
peace.
sustainable. It's true peace.
It's
And then the
real
people that I
peace.
actually like talking to, I don't have to fret or fear whether I'm going to be good enough for them tomorrow, because they already like me, with all the good and all the bad. They're down for me being a little over controlling. They're down for me being like super loving, all of it, right? And I'm down for everything that they're bringing. And so it's not a struggle to, like, it used to be such a struggle for me
Yeah.
to like go hang out with somebody because I had to do so much. Now when I think about going to hang out with a friend, I can relax because I'm like, oh, I'm gonna feel rejuvenated and rejuvenate all at the
You're
same
gonna
time.
you're gonna actually be present with them rather than
Just like keep pressing.
distracted by the narcissistic images and personas and the needy, all this other shit. It's like most of the time when people come together, they're not even there. It's just they bring
Mm-hmm.
all this noise, and you just have noise interacting with noise. And you're discovering that when you stop that noise, oh wow, you actually can have real relationships in real life that are
Yeah.
real and mean something
Yeah.
for life.
Yeah,
Um,
it's very relaxing. It's like,
yeah.
oh God, I can like let it, like compared to, and it's like, and for me, that's kind of heavy. Like it's still somewhat heavy. It's just like finally relax. And, like I know that for others, and, you know, the more that I get used to that, the more that I get used to just being, I can actually start to trust. Like some days I actually really like fully trust it. And it's like, oh, I can just be me. And like, that's nice and exciting. And it feels a little bit lighter. It feels more, like there's more to give, so much more to give. And then that brings me to like how I would like wrap all this up or synthesize is that like I feel like we're explorers, just like of life. It's like it's not about looking like something that you think you should be. It's about like just getting in touch with what's actually here, like getting in touch with what's real, getting in touch with the territory. The map is cool. If you want to go somewhere, go, but then explore. Like the point isn't to just go to a place on a map and be like, hey, I got to a point on the map. It's to say like, well, why are we actually here? Like, let's drink from the water. Let's let's enjoy the richness of the greenery or the desert wherever we're at. And so I often feel more like just a wisdom that gets transferred in our explorations together.
So we're gonna do a quick comparison of these videos, of the before and after, and then we're gonna wrap up with some final takeaways.
It's so heavy. The top one is so heavy. Like, uh, I remember back then I would usually try to really pull my chest up and my shoulders, but it was like a very conscious act. And then you can see in that video, I'm like not trying to do that. And then there's this like, it just feels so defeated. Um, and then in the video we took a couple weeks ago with the tan shirt, like I just feel naturally lifted. There's this very natural lift and joy in exploring myself. It seems so funny to be so delighted by my own hands.
I mean, just that difference, just in that silly little thing right there.
Yeah, like life is not that serious, like there's things that are important, but it does not have to be serious.
Yeah, it's sincere. Since this work is very sincere.
Mm.
It demands sincerity, but not serious. It's like you get to see here how much you're smiling, you're laughing, you see the tenderness, there's a sweetness, you're accessible.
Playing.
Yeah, yeah. There's a humor, right? It's like, all right, so you have these two people. These two people. You walk up to a party or you see them on the street. It's like who no.
I want to share too what this experience is, what these two different experiences are like, because they're there's a very strong contrast to how my life happens in these two separate experiences.
Oh, yes.
Okay, because I don't usually get as dark as that upper image anymore, but I can still close people out just as strongly as I ever could,
Sure. Yeah.
and have that very strong like get away from me, fuck you energy. Um,
Because we're integrating. We're not
yes,
judging and removing. So you have
exactly.
access to it when you need or choose to, um, but it doesn't run you anymore. So go ahead.
Exactly. And so I dance very regularly, and so it's a very simple place for to see and feel in a small environment exactly how people and social system is going to like respond to me and how I'm showing up. And it's very quick. Um, the same as it might be if you just go to a party like you were talking about. Um, and you might not always know, but then like this experience has become so present to me that if I'm in that upper energy and I'm on the dance floor, and this is just like an electronic dance, you know, everybody's dancing by themselves, just kind of having fun, or screaming or whatever they have to do, whatever they want to do. If I have that like aggressive push away energy, people will literally create a circle instinctively. They will create a circle
Yeah.
around me about 5 feet. Like some people will pass through it sometimes, but for the most part, people will stay about 5 feet away from me, around me. They just, you know, and then I like, and if I forget that I'm in that and that I feel like that, and I look and I'm like, why are people avoiding me? Why are people? It can be very it can be very like sad on the inside if I don't realize that I'm in that state. And so oftentimes like a little bit of self-reflection, like reflecting on the outside, like the outside world is telling me like, oh hey, you must be, you know, like it's probably not everybody else, because everybody else is doing the same thing. It's probably me. So let me figure out what I'm doing here. And oh, I'm probably pushing everybody away right now. So then I just feel into that and feel and develop a sense of like, oh, that's okay, and that's okay. I guess I'm pushing and sometimes it's like, I guess I'm pushing everybody away today. Other times, there's another version of intimacy that I can obtain with myself, which is just like, what do I need right now? Like, what's happening? What's this about? It's a question you ask often. So, what's this about? And then I might get a little, like, I might get a little ping. It might just be a memory or something like that, and then I might be able to let go of it. Um, the experience still stands, though, is that when I'm giving off that energy, people will stay away. Like people will absolutely stay away. They'll avoid the heck out of me. They won't make eye contact. They're not going to try to start conversations with me. And if I start a conversation with them, they will do their best to get out of it, because I'm constantly like pushing them away like this. But then in that energy below, you know, with the tan shirt and the necklace, like when I have that and I'm receptive and I'm accessible and I'm feeling both lovable and loving, and just playful, it literally the opposite happens. People are drawn in. People want to come say hi to me. People will walk by and they'll touch me. They want to share themselves. You know, they want to experience me. And we can play and we can dance together and move on and whatever, in whatever capacity we want to do. But then I start to, then I look around and people are willing to make eye contact. You know, they want to start conversations. They want to start dances. I want to start dances. They're totally, and they want to stay in the dance when I'm in the dance, when I'm, or conversations. Like people aren't rushing to get out of the conversation because I'm actually just letting them in and saying, hey, you're welcome here, rather than pushing them away. And that feels internally like so much more filling and so much more reassuring to the insecurities that I have still from, like, you know, a young age, where I'm like, oh, people must think I'm like a terrible person or something like that. And it's not true. Like I'm clearly not like the most disgusting, abhorrent person in the world. And so like if I tell the world you're disgusting, they will tell me that back. If I say you're not good enough, they will tell me that back. Um, uh, as above, so below.
It's funny because the ego, there's a lot of people where the ego will look at this and it's like, yeah, well, what about the money? What about the sex? What about the success? What
Tell you
about
all
the
about all that stuff if you want to hear it.
what?
I said, I'll tell you all about all that stuff if you want to hear it.
So we see these two people, and we will in a second. So we
Yeah,
see these two people, and this is what it's really about. There is all of that stuff, and that is important. It is about that as well. Um, but when you can fall in love with yourself, when you can stop despising yourself, when you can let go of all this suffering, and you actually live your day from joy and ease and beauty and grace, it's priceless.
yes.
I mean, even most people don't experience an entire single day of this in their whole life. And
I
what a
did not.
gift.
I did not before this.
Yeah.
I had not felt truly connected and fulfilled for an entire day in my life before this.
what a gift. I mean, this is what people will, this is what people, whether they realize it or not on a conscious level, this is what we're going for. You know, because everything comes from this. And this is what everything's about. It's like you can have all the material stuff in the world, you know, but if you hate yourself and you push everybody away, you know, maybe you're not poor, but man, there's a lot of suffering. And you may be happy, but if your life doesn't work in other ways, that will still create a lot of suffering, right? You could live in blissful ignorance, um, but if you struggle every day to pay your bills and relate to people and uh, honor your commitments, there's going to be suffering and struggle there too. So it's all of it. And you touched upon the slow path. Uh, to the ego, it feels slow because you don't get that quick hit of the easy fixes.
Right.
But if you look from a meta perspective, a year, you're like all of this changed in just a year,
Yes.
where it's unheard of in other
I
approaches.
can speak to that really quickly. Is that like it took? I mean, I tried for a decade every other quick fix book. I spent 10 years and I
Yeah.
didn't make. I mean, I think I had
Yeah.
some
Solid.
better outcomes. You know, like
Yeah.
it was incremental, but
Yeah.
it was there. You know, I had some effect.
Yep.
I could get more of the things that I wanted to get, but I wasn't necessarily any happier. I wasn't any more connected.
Yeah.
Um, and 1 year, 1 year of this, and my life is tremendously different. I know what I care about. I know what I value. Um, I have all the same stuff that I had before, like technically, but I actually enjoy it now. I didn't really care before. I didn't. I would get it, and I would be like, "Well, I have the thing," and then internally, I would still feel totally fucking empty. And now I like. Now I can actually, I can enjoy my own hands, you know. And that
Yeah.
just gives me more opportunity, far more than
Yeah.
I ever had before. I had to always had to fight for it before, and now it feels just like all this stuff comes easy.
Sorry to hear that.
I know, me too. It's such a sad, sad existence.
Yeah. Life gets easier and more fulfilling. So tell me about that. So as we wrap up here, we see that there's this physical change. There's literally a physical shift that occurs. I mean, you took age off, all of this burden, this weight, this you saw the difference of this tight firmness, this rigidness, and in the second image we see the softness, and here we see the softness, accessibility, um, and there was so much I know that you worked on about feeling safe. Now this is the weird thing to the ego, is that beforehand when you're hard and rigid, you have all this protection up. Now you don't have all that protection. You're softer, you're more vulnerable, more accessible, but do you feel more safe?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like there's a there's a knowing. The biggest thing for me it really speaks with my. Oh, actually, I'll speak to two things. One is friends, and one is being alone in my own apartment. Um, with friends, I wasn't always sure. There was some part of me that always kind of just knew that I have to protect myself. I'm looking out for myself. So I would always look for, interestingly enough, I was always guarded, and I was always look for the ways in which they were disrespecting me and how I had to garner that respect and all these other things. And so I created an idea of safety in my guard and in my capacity to fight for myself. But there was always a fight. So I'm really always scared. And now I have some very substantially uh, intimate relationships with, like, I'd say real friends now. And I trust them. like I trust them to look out for my best interest, and I don't guard myself, and I don't look for the ways in which they might harm me. I look for the ways, and I make I like feel now that I assume they're going to help me out, and they disappoint me sometimes, and I disappoint them, and we account for that. You know, we talk about it, we clear things up. You know, it can be a 10-minute conversation, sometimes an hour-long conversation where we're like not sure if we can, you know, like it's going to happen again. And a conversation like that a year ago would have almost always, if there was enough tension, the conversation would have ended a relationship for me, would have ended a friendship for me. Or we just wouldn't have it. We just make the assumption that I just assume like, oh, this is who you are. And then I recategorize that person. And I just had a really challenging conversation with a friend last night. I say challenging, even though it went beautifully. Like he was a little bit scared of something that I brought up, and you know, felt like I had been a little disrespectful about, you know, speaking about a girl he's dating, and you know, he felt kind of grossed out by what I had said, and we just continued the conversation and realized that we both really deeply care for each other, and that he was just asking for me to care a little bit more. I was like, of course I do. Of course I care. And and we both left feeling, you know, well, I should say we continued that conversation and ended up just having a night walk for hours and just opening up even more and talking even more and saying like, no, I deeply trust you. I deeply trust you to show up. And it's like, it's okay to make a mistake like this, you know, for either one of us. And I didn't guard myself. I didn't guard myself from his criticism. I let it in. I let him say these shameful things that he was thinking about me. It's kind of hard to hear, but then at the same
Yeah.
time, I was like, you know, he has judgments and he has a reaction to this, and that's okay. And I felt on a deeper level, this doesn't mean I'm a terrible person. This just means this is an experience we're having right now. We're going to make it right on through it. And sure enough, we did. And I left, like, we both had a beautiful cry together, held each other in that. And I would have never been caught doing that a year ago, you know, like crying in front of a male friend. And it was just tremendously beautiful. And I felt safe to be there. I felt safe to show up. I felt safe to actually just open myself up to get hurt. I felt safe to hear what he had to say. Um, and that's a lot. I would that's a lot. That's a type of safety that no amount of armor and warrior can really ever bring. Uh, is to be able to like turn into a marshmallow and just hang out. It's quite nice. Um,
Yeah, how the that very thing is what leads to intimacy and both of your needs being heard and met,
yeah,
and you have a deeper, better relationship because of it. You know, it's just the opposite
absolutely.
of what we think is going to happen.
That's exactly right. And now I feel uh, if I had had that conversation a year ago, I would have just been stubborn and said like, "Fuck you! You don't know what you're talking about," you know. And he would have just said the same thing, and then we would have. I would be spending most of today, or if not the next week, just like fuming, trying to continue to function with the rest of my life, fuming. But I feel lighter today than I did after that conversation. I feel more depth, more safety, more trust. I'm more certain than I ever was that this is a friend, that this man cares about me. And I let it in, and he let it in, and so I'll like tie this off with the second point, which is like my safety in my own skin and with myself. Is that I used to actually have quite a bit of terror, even in my own apartment. I couldn't sleep well. I was never able to like really sleep well, or I never felt fully rested after sleep. And then even in my own apartment, I would still have, you know, just a lot of worries and thoughts about like, am I going to be arrested for some random thing that I did? And all this kind of like just crazy thoughts, always
Yeah,
spinning,
yeah, yeah.
always spinning. And then guarding against that, like having these conversations in my own mind, to like, well, how am I going to plan for that? How am I going to figure that out? How am I going to fix it, and mitigate? Which takes a lot of energy, you can imagine. And so just a general anxiety, really, about like all the terrible things, like what if my neighbors can hear me? How embarrassing is that going to be? They're going to talk terribly about me, those kind of things. And
All this noise, neurotic stuff.
yeah, and really all that was just self-hate, just a ton of self-hate, all the ways that I'm disapproving of myself and think that I've been wrong, and all these other things that are just manifesting in these projections. And more and more lately, my experience is that like I can say what I want. Like I'm in my own apartment, I'm just hanging out, and like I do a lot of I record myself a lot on camera now. I could never do that before. I can record myself on camera now and watch it and appreciate whatever comes through, good or bad, or like light or dark. And I accept a lot more of like, even if I get depressed someday, and I'm just like, that's okay. I'm just gonna lay down and be depressed and listen for that, look at it, and then ultimately find out that like I'm angry at something, and I'm like, okay, that I'm okay. It's okay for me to be angry. And I just like talk through the anger, realize like, oh, I need a little bit more care from my friend or my mentor or something, right? And so I go ask for it, and then I feel rejuvenated and met. It just leads to more results, and that fundamental sense of safety for me has been so important. It's like now I can sleep, now I can enjoy. Actually, like and I can't even tell you how exponential that all is. Like I've got cultivated enough sense of safety that I can sleep well, which then cultivates even more of all of that. And all of life is so interrelated in that way, that I can just function. I know that I can get up and get done whatever I need to get done, whatever I want to get done. And like you said about Elon Musk, like he works hard, but he loves what he does. He enjoys it. And I'm finally getting to a place where like responsibility, I'm like enjoying responsibility. I can feel fulfilled by it, rather than at before it felt like such a burden. Because I feel rejuvenated within myself. I feel like, oh, like I enjoy my own body. I enjoy the movement of my own body. I enjoy the creation of whatever it is that I'm creating.
So let's wrap up here. Um, thank you very much for your time. Just a couple last little bits. Um, if you were to quickly summarize, take a few minutes, and not having to go into lots of details, but just go down a list, like a bulleted list of what's changed in your life in this past year.
Mm.
Rapid fire style.
I feel loved. Um, I enjoy work, like taking care of myself in the ways like working out, doing the dishes, so my space stays cleaner. Um, I get to share with my friends things that I'm just genuinely excited about. Um, Making money is easier than it's ever been.
Okay.
It's just, I'm like, oh, I can just reach out and go get a client. And I don't, I don't feel the resistance that I felt before. I just like, I know I've got the value to offer. I can just go say, hey, here's what we're going to do together. And it feels like a gift that I'm giving, rather than like, oh, I've got to get this and I've got to make it home. Just let all that go. Speaking about some of the things you said before, is like like the sex is actually fulfilling now. that's that's pretty nice. Like there's actually really a joyful experience there. I started picking up hobbies. I learned to surf. I've also got like a foil board, and I've learned to surf on that, and I just enjoy it. Like I just get on it and enjoy myself. Like I don't, like I don't have to get anywhere. I don't have to go anywhere. I just like get on and enjoy the connectedness to my body and the water, the board, and the lake and the beautiful greenery around me. Started to be able to, something that's a little harder to explain is I can see now. And that might sound strange because it's like everybody who can has everybody who can see, but it's like it's not necessarily true. Like I can see, I can experience the visual in a way that just wasn't happening before. I can feel, I can hear. Like there's such a different way that words and a person's voice come into me. Like music, music touches me now where it didn't before. It would just hype me up or give me a very broad feeling, and now it touches me in this very dynamic way.
A feeling. I mean, that's a huge basis of our work. You're feeling now.
I'm feeling, and that comes with a lot of cool, interesting gifts. I would say it's like not only experiences but gifts. It's like I don't know how else to call it, but other than intuition. Like there's parts of me that are highly very powerful resources that I just never trusted before. But there's internal guide. There's just there's internal guidances that come through visually. They come through kinesthetic feeling. They come through audibly. They sometimes together that are just that make that allow me to just like relax and trust that like I can make this work. I can just exist and complete whatever I'm set out to complete in a fun and creative way.
You moved into a new place. You
moved into a new place, so I that was actually a part of. I can see more clearly what I want, what I care about, what matters to me, and then when I reach for what I really care about, there's a deep fulfillment in actually completing. So like, and this apartment specifically was one of those things. Was like I want to live in this specific building in this specific part of town, and I felt it. I felt it very strongly. I could see it. I could see it inside of me. I could see it, and I could feel myself in this apartment. And a couple months later, here I am, and that and it feels right. It feels right for me. It cleans up. It's like I want my space reflects my inner world, and the place that I was at before reflected the inner world that I moved in with, and it stopped serving that purpose and needed to move into a space that like fully reflects. And I checked, like, does it, I intuitively knew, because of the feeling that I had. And then I went and double checked that, like, is this actually? And yes it is. It still feels right. It's hitting all the points, and now I'm here. And I have this absolutely stunning sky high view over West Austin and the lake, and it just helps me even find even more beauty and even more joy to just like be here and experience all of this.
Your intimate relationships.
Oh, there's a lot. Okay.
Just the general changes. Yeah.
The general change is that, like, it's so broad for me to explain. So give me a moment to synthesize. It's like like we can see each other, feel each other, relax, slow down, conversations feel like they're a canvas, like like paint on canvas, more so than just like a means to an end. Um, like I can just like hang out. I can just
I
hang
like
out with
that.
my
Yeah.
partners, whereas I couldn't do that before. We always had to be doing something. Uh, and now it
Can you
almost doesn't matter what we do. It's like we're just in it together.
more intimacy, presence with each other?
And it's easier.
Yeah.
It's so much easier. Like just know, like we just kind of know, what we need and what we're experiencing with each other. And when something feels like if I hurt my partner, I feel that. I know, and then I listen. When I don't feel when I don't know, and when I don't feel it, I like I assume that positive regard, and that there's truth there, and let it in. And then what used to be just like world-ending fights, now they're just emotional conversations, like just deeply emotional, often, grief, some pain, some pride, and then moving on to like, well, I love you and I care about you, and let's continue doing this together.
It's beautiful.
Men and women.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel accepted in general, like both in general and in the communities of people that I choose to hang out with, and my close circle of friends. Like
Yeah.
I feel
Yeah. There
accepted
was,
and accepting.
yeah, there was all of this stuff that you were doing to get that.
Hmm.
And now, once you stopped doing all of that stuff, it's just there.
Hmm.
I mean, it's so easy and obvious, and yet we fight so hard to keep it away from us.
Yeah.
So what else?
um I feel way less neurotic. I have a much like more healthy relationship with like exercise and food. I was very, very like, I got to do it. I got to eat the right thing. I got to, like, what's wrong with me? If something felt out of place, I'm just like catastrophizing what's possibly wrong with me. And it's like, it shows up everywhere else in my life too. And now I just feel like I have a healthy relationship with food. I have like a basic set of things that I really like to eat. They feel good to me. They fill me, and and I feel like I have like just strength and energy, in general. And I don't I plan it, but I also just feel there's something I can feel more deeply than I could feel before, rather than like I just want to stuff my mouth with something sweet. Now I can taste a strawberry, and it's like, and the texture of it and the juiciness of it, and I care about quality. I care about, and that's another thing. I care about quality now in a way that I didn't before. I think I always knew that, and I always had like, so it still even showed up in like an ego structure. But now I really touch things to feel it. Like, is this for me? Like, is this actually like, I might have to see this thing every day. I'm going to sit in this chair every day.
Yeah.
I'm going to use this pan every day, and like, does it feel right for me, or am I gonna hate it and be annoyed by it? That like that, that matters. Or like the way I dress, I've changed the way I dress. Um, Specifically, like I think I've always liked to dress well, or at least flashy, but now I dress more for how do I feel about it? Like, how do I feel in this? Do I enjoy the texture? Do I enjoy the fit? And then even when I look at myself, do I like how I feel about this look, more so than does this look like the thing that I want it to look like?
The image. Yeah.
The image, exactly. Does this match an image? And I've got a couple outfits that I really liked before that I don't like anymore. So I let go of that stuff. They were flat. They were the pricey, flashy things that I thought I should be wearing. But then, when I started feeling and I put them on, it's just like, I was like, this doesn't feel like me. This doesn't feel appropriate. I don't actually like wearing it. Um,
So a lot
might
more
feel like,
self-trust.
yeah, a lot more self-trust.
Anything else? I mean, I'm surely there's a lot, but anything else that you'd like to share?
And there's also a lot of weird things too. I mean, I'll just say that it's not all. It's like I said, I listed off a lot of good stuff, or a lot of like good sounding stuff, but then there's a lot of weirdness in getting to know, I have like quite a few eccentricities. For instance, like human skin kind of freaks me out. I didn't know that before. I'm weird. I feel resistant to water. Like bodies of water or water on my skin also bothers me. There's just all these little, like, there's just a lot of little things
Yeah.
that I would have never known before, and I would have forced myself through in doing so. And now I actually get to be in touch with that. So I get to feel I get to feel for water, for instance, now I get to build. I didn't realize that I hate water. I hated grass. I didn't know I hated grass. And so now that I know that about myself, like I can make the choice to either continue hating grass and be okay with that. Like, oh, I hate grass. I'm just going to stay away from grass. Or I hate water. I'm going to stay away from water in general. Or I can build a relationship, which is what I've actually chosen to do. But I can do it in a very like compassionate, caring way, rather than like, you've got to get in the water. Be more of like, can I get in the water? Like, is that going to be okay? And I'll be like, testing it out, testing it out. I'm like, okay, I think the water's fine. And build a relationship with water that I did not have before.
Yeah, all these little things when we get more present and in our body and feel, you're showing up to life. And when you show up to life, all of this stuff becomes present. Most of us are avoiding life and we don't see these things. So, all these quirky little things come up, and you either say, "No, this is my real personality. There's this thing here," or, "No, this is some weird trauma, and yeah, I don't need to live with that anymore." And let's compassionately play with it, see what happens, work with it. A lot more breath, a lot more space, a lot more surrender, a lot more trust. All these things that the ego doesn't necessarily think leads to any of the tangible, material, practical stuff, but without it, nothing in our life works.
I'll say every layer of it always feels slower. It always feels like seems slower, seems like less to the ego at first. Then in practice, the tangible results always shoot far past whatever the ego story was.
Practical, applicable, even if at first it doesn't quite make sense, like shaking your hands. So, what kind of person, who would you recommend this work to?
And I would recommend it to everybody. I know very few people who don't need some aspect of this work. But like, I would say I think it's especially powerful for like typically like high level, high functioning money, like high income earners that are just suffering, fighting with their wives, lovers. And you can always look and point to the success and hide behind that success. But like deep down, there's just this masochistic pain and suffering that's just constantly just being berated and berated. And that's the thing I can relate to the most. So that's like the niche individual market that I would say, like, this is especially powerful. And like, you may not recognize it yet, but like whatever wealth you've created is only gonna through the softening, through the opening, is only gonna multiply exponentially, even through finding something more based and meaningful in the reasoning and why and the expression of where you're going with your business in the first place, other than just, being powerful and successful.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate your time and sharing your experience. Over a year of doing this work together, almost every week we've met. Um, we've grown together, and it's been an honor and a pleasure um, working with you. Any final words? Any final thoughts?
Thank you.
You're welcome.